Hi, I'm Beth, and I like telling stories. Following my dream stories, I wanted to share some of my other works. This story is a little longer and actually not quite finished yet, but I thought it would be fun to share some of it with you anyway. I wrote this one around 2019, I believe. It was originally a theme for Inktober, as I drew pictures to go along with segments of this story. If I can find them, I'll put them up for you to see here too. Intro out of the way, we'll get into the story. This is Reap What You Sow. Chapter 1. Twins Talk. Cain shoved the flyer in Abel's face, more insistent this time, but Abel swatted it away again, not interested in joining another dumb cult or club his brother would only be interested in temporarily. Cain was Abel's twin brother, younger by just a couple minutes, and died shortly after Abel did. Now they were patched together undead. Zombies, some would call them. But Abel found that term tasteless and somewhat insulting. They were not some drooling, empty-headed, walking dead type of zombies. They were just not alive. At least not in the way that they used to be. Being dead came with its perks. After they were reborn, they found themselves in a new set of realms called the Outer World. Apparently, the Underworld wasn't a thing, like in so much mythology Abel read about when he was alive. The Outer World, well, he didn't fully understand it, but it was infinite and larger than anyone could imagine, with layers upon layers of different worlds to visit. The ones he and Cain had access to anyway. They were what some called lukewarm souls. They didn't belong here or there. No eternal damnation, no heavenly paradise. Just left to their own devices to travel around the middle layers of this universe. It was Halloween, and they were lucky to have stumbled into a realm that was hosting an assortment of parties, parades, and the like. The gray city was illuminated by red and purple lights, decorated with streamers and overrun with monsters, or other beings similar to themselves, decked out in elaborate costumes. The festivities had only just begun, and Abel planned to enjoy himself. "Just look at it!" Cain interrupted his thoughts again, walking backwards and in front of him, pointing excitedly at the now crinkled poster. "You can't tell me that's not the coolest thing you've ever seen." It was, once again, shoved in Abel's face. He halted his stride and snatched it out of Cain's hands. "Fine, I'll look at it, but that doesn't mean I'm agreeing to anything." Cain grinned, eagerly waiting for Abel's thoughts. Abel looked at him through drooped eyelids, then flicked his gaze down to the poster in his hand. His first thoughts? Tacky. A grungy skeleton decked out in a classic Black Reaper cloak was depicted on the front. In one bony hand it held a scythe, and the other pointed at the viewer. And written in splattered red font around the skeleton was, "Reapers needed. Apply now at Rockco." Abel lifted his gaze back to his brother, who was still smiling gleefully. "So?" Cain asked. "So? Isn't Rockco shady?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. During their short stay here, he heard whispers from the more prominent residents of Drundale that Rockco was regarded as a black mark on their little city. Quite literally. It was said to be shrouded in complete and constant darkness, almost impossible to find, and they said those who entered rarely, if ever, returned. Cain clapped his hand on Abel's shoulder. "Come on, it's the Outer World. Hasn't every realm been a little shady? We should try out for the gig. Imagine us, the greatest reapers to ever live. Well, sort of. Maybe not live, but you know what I mean." "Yeah, it wouldn't be hard to do, 'cause a reaper job sounds boring as hell, Cain. Why else do you think they're hiring?" Abel crossed his arms, having a feeling he was going to be roped into something. As much as he disliked the idea, he wouldn't have much of a choice if Cain went. He didn't want to carry on in this life without him. Annoying as he was, Cain was Abel's only constant, which helped ease his day-to-day worries. "Don't be like this, man. Come on. It's not some random club or anything. This would just be something, like, we could finally commit to. Wouldn't it be nice to have a purpose again?" The last sentence gave Abel pause. That was something they had discussed before. How long could they wander and roam this middle world until there was nothing left to see or do? They needed a plan B, but haven't came up with one yet. Kane must have noticed the gears turning in his head, because he continued, "This is the opportunity we've been waiting for, hasn't it?" Abel sighed, hoping he didn't regret this. "Where do we find Rotco?" Kane smiled so wide, Abel was sure he would snap the stitches loose on his face. "I don't have a clue, but one of these party people have to know." He gestured to the crowds flooding the city, singing and laughing as streamers and confetti sprinkled through the air like snow. Great people. Abel's stomach swam and turned just thinking about engaging with them all. Kane had to grab his arm and drag him along while he thrust the flyer into strangers' faces, asking each of them if they had any idea how to find Rotco. Each person shook their head or ignored Kane entirely, until they reached a mysterious-looking lady standing by a wall of posters and advertisements. For whatever reason, Kane made a beeline for her next, abandoning the crowd. "Excuse me, ma'am," he shouted, waving his now very crinkled flyer in the air. "You know where to find Rotco?" The closer they got, Abel couldn't help but look at her curiously. She wore long, satiny blue robes with a hood pulled up, and her face was actually obscured by a mask. One half of it was an elaborate peacock that curled around the eye and then down around the bottom. The other half was white with a delicate butterfly wing painted on it. He couldn't help but wonder what the significance of it was. She tipped her head at Kane, her voice delicate and smooth. "Oh, I know where that is. That info might cost you something, though," she said, her tone playful. The twins exchanged a look before focusing back on the mystery woman. "What kind of cost?" Abel asked. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe an eye or two. They're so lovely." She slipped something out of her sleeve, a slender knife that gleamed under the colorful lights, and she pointed it at them playfully. Kane hesitated before answering. Our eyes are half rotted. What good would they do you?" She tapped the tip of the knife to her chin thoughtfully, but her posture finally drooped in defeat. You're good. You stumped me," she laughed lightly. "I only tease." She points her knife to the right. "Down there. I just got back from visiting a friend at Rotco. It's always a bear to find your way into the place, so I won't be able to help you in that area." They turned their heads, and Abel wondered how they missed it. The building faded into complete darkness, the shadows seeming to swallow up any and all color from the festivities. Well, thanks," Abel said with a wave. "Don't forget me when you're famous reapers." She blew them a kiss from her mask as they walked away, deeper into the darkness of Drundell. "That wasn't creepy at all." Kane laughed, shoving Abel playfully. "You gotta lighten up, dude.